The courtroom went silent as the little girl walked bravely to the stand, her dress trembling around her knees. The judge leaned forward. "Emma, do you understand why we're here?" She nodded, eyes locked on the man who had abandoned her years ago. "Because he says he's my dad," she whispered. The judge tilted his head. "And what do you think?" The room held its breath. Emma's voice broke through, strong and certain. "My real dad is the one who danced with me when I was sad, who helps me with my homework, who pushes me on the swings. That's Mr. Nathaniel. He's my dad, not the other man." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. No one could believe what they had just heard. What happened next changed everything, and you won't want to miss it. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the street still smelled of damp asphalt and rust. Nathaniel Hayes sat silently in the back of his black town car, staring out at rows of rundown houses as his driver tried to make conversation. "Mr. Hayes, you really shouldn't get out here," warned Paul, his loyal chauffeur. "This neighborhood isn't safe for you. You got that call with the investors in Tokyo in just a couple hours." Nathaniel didn't even turn his head. His hand hovered over the door handle, and his voice was flat exhausted. "Cancel the call, Paul. Tell them I'm sick." Paul almost slammed on the brakes. "Sir, you've canceled 3 major meetings this month. People are starting to notice. This could just do it." Nathaniel snapped, surprising even himself. He rarely raised his voice. His empire had been built on disciplined control and icy precision. But tonight, his chest felt like a locked vault bursting at the seams. "I need air. I need something real." He stepped out into the cool night, the door shutting behind him with a heavy thud. For once, he didn't care about shareholders' contracts or the empire that bore his name. Since Olivia, his wife, had died, all of it had turned to ash in his hands. He wandered through cracked sidewalks and chipped fences, past children playing tag under flickering streetlights, and mothers stringing up laundry between crooked poles. It was a world far from his high-rise penthouse overlooking Central Park. Yet somehow it felt alive in a way his sterile life no longer did. People here smiled at him without knowing his name. Kids laughed without fear. It was messy, imperfect, real. Nathaniel walked aimlessly until something caught his eye. A bright yellow poster taped to the door of a local elementary school. The words seemed to burn into him. Father-daughter dance. Tonight at 7 p.m. For a moment, the world went still. His throat tightened as he remembered Olivia's voice years ago, teasing him in their kitchen. "One day, we'll have a little girl. She'll have my eyes, your smile, and you'll take her to dances like this." But life had robbed him of that dream. The accident had taken more than just his wife. It had taken their future. A sound pulled him out of his spiral. Soft sobs muffled by tiny hands. Just a few steps away, a little girl sat on the front steps of the school. She couldn't have been more than 8. Her dress was sky blue with lace trimming, new but slightly wrinkled, and her patent leather shoes gleamed in the fading light. Yet her eyes were swollen with tears. Nathaniel hesitated. He had closed billion-dollar deals, faced hostile boards, and spoken before world leaders. But walking up to the small, fragile figure felt like the hardest thing he'd ever done. "Hey there," he said gently, crouching down to her level. "Are you all right?" The girl sniffled and shook her head. "It's a father-daughter dance," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Everyone has a dad to dance with except me." The words pierced him deeper than any boardroom betrayal. He swallowed hard, his voice rough. "Where's your father?" "I don't have one." "Well, I do, but he doesn't live with us." "And my mom, she's working. She always works." She wiped her nose on the sleeve of her dress. "So I'm just here alone. What's your name?" He asked softly. "Emma," she said, her big brown eyes meeting his. "Nathaniel," he replied, extending his hand like they were meeting at a grand ball. "Nice to meet you, Emma." She studied him curiously, her gaze lingering on his tailored suit, his polished shoes, details that screamed he didn't belong here. But instead of shrinking back, she tilted her head. "Do you have a daughter?" "No," he admitted. "No children." "Then why are you here?" The question landed like a punch. Why was he here? He didn't know. All he knew was that he couldn't turn away from this child's loneliness. Maybe, he said slowly. I'm here because I was supposed to meet you. And if you want, I could be your dad for tonight. Emma's eyes widened. For the first time, they shimmered with something other than tears. Hope, really? You dance with me? Of course, Nathaniel said, smiling faintly. But only if you want me to. Emma bit her lip. My mom says I'm not supposed to talk to stranger. Your mom is right. Nathaniel nodded. She sounded very wise. Tell you what, let's ask your teacher first. Okay, just to be sure. Emma thought for a moment, then stood smoothing her dress. Okay, but just for tonight. Just for tonight, he promised, though deep down he already sensed it would be more than that. Inside the school, the gymnasium was decorated with balloons and paper flowers. Fathers in worn jeans and work boots twirled their daughters around, while the DJ played a soft, nostalgic tune. Nathaniel fell out of place like a penguin in a flock of pigeons. His suit alone made him stand out, but the weight of his grief made him feel even heavier. Emma tugged at his sleeve. Don't worry, I'll teach you. Mom made me practice all week. When the music swelled, she placed his hand gently on her waist and set her tiny palm on his shoulder. Nathaniel bent down to meet her height, and they began to sway. Her laughter rang out when he stumbled. Her eyes sparkled when he followed her lead. For the first time in months, Nathaniel felt a crack of light push through the darkness inside him. See, you're a natural, Emma beamed. He chuckled, the sound rusty, almost foreign. And you? You dance like you've been doing this forever. My mom says dancing is like flying just with your feet on the ground. Nathaniel's throat ached. He watched her smile stretch wide, her cheeks flush with joy. And for one fleeting second, he imagined she really was his daughter, that he was just another dad at just another dance. But it was more than pretend, because as Emma spun under his arm and giggled, he realized something terrifying. His heart wasn't just playing along. It was waking up. By the end of the night, Emma clung to his hand like she'd known him forever. She introduced him to her friends as my dad, Nathaniel, and though he laughed it off every time she said it, a part of him wanted to believe it was true. When the music stopped, she climbed onto his lap, resting her head against his chest. Mr. Nathaniel, she whispered, can you be my dad every day, not just tonight? His heart squeezed. He opened his mouth, but before he could answer, a woman's sharp voice cut through the gym. Emma, where have you been? Nathaniel looked up. A young woman in scrubs. Her dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail rushed toward them. Exhaustion shadowed her face, but her eyes blazed with protective fire. She pulled Emma into her arms, glaring at him. And who exactly are you? She demanded. The magical bubble shattered. Nathaniel stood, his hands trembling slightly. My name is Nathaniel Hayes, he said quietly, and I promise I mean your daughter no harm. But the woman wasn't convinced. Not yet, and deep down Nathaniel knew this night was only the beginning. The gymnasium was almost empty when Nathaniel finally stepped outside into the cool night air. He could still feel Emma's small hand clutching and still hear her laughter echoing in his chest. But the moment replaying most vividly was the sharp stare of her mother, the woman who had arrived in scrubs, exhausted and furious. Her name, he learned quickly, was Lena Carter. She was a nurse at the local hospital working double shifts just to keep food on the table and pay down debts from her mother's surgery. When she had burst into the school, she had found her daughter sitting comfortably in the lap of a stranger, a man who looked far too polished for this neighborhood. Stay away from my daughter, Lena, had hissed after pulling Emma close. She doesn't need more confusion in her life. But Nathaniel couldn't let it end there. Something about Emma, her innocence, her longing for a father had pierced the hardened shell he'd built around his grief. For the first time since Olivia's death, he felt like he mattered to someone again. The next morning, Nathaniel did what he hadn't done in months. He picked up his phone, not for business, but for something personal. He called the school principal politely asking for Lena's number. Hours later, after pacing his penthouse in circles, he dialed it. Mrs. Carter, this is Nathaniel Hayes. I wanted to apologize for last night. I realized how it must have looked. There was a long silence, then a sigh. You don't need to call me. Emma already has too many disappointments in her life. I can't afford her getting attached to someone who will disappear when it's convenient. Nathaniel's voice tightened. I'm not trying to play games. Honestly, last night, your daughter gave me more life than I felt in 6 months. I know I'm a stranger, but maybe I don't want to be. Another pause. Finally, Lena whispered, You can stop by just once, but if Emma gets hurt because of you, I'll never forgive it. That afternoon, Nathaniel arrived at their small brick house. It was nothing like his glass-walled apartment overlooking the city. The furniture was old, but neatly kept the walls covered in family photos of Emma. The place radiated warmth, something his million-dollar home had long been Ms. Sing. Emma squealed when she saw him. Mr. Nathaniel, you came. She rushed into his arms before her mother could protest. Nathaniel knelt to meet her eyes. I promised I wouldn't forget you, and I keep my promises. Over the weeks that followed, Nathaniel began visiting regularly. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, he helped Emma with homework. On Saturdays, he took her to the park, pushing her on the swings until her laughter carried across the grass. Lena watched cautiously at first arms crossed her walls high. But slowly, even she couldn't deny the bond forming. Emma had never been this happy. Yet, happiness rarely comes without shadows. One evening, Lena was preparing dinner when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her blood ran cold. A known number, but when she answered, a voice from her past poured through like poison. Lena, it's me, Mark, Emma's biological father. Lena gripped the counter for balance. Why are you calling me? I want to see my daughter. His tone was sharp, possessive. I know about the man you got playing daddy. That ends now. Emma is mine. You walked out when she was 6 months old. Lena snapped. You haven't sent $1 of support. You have no right. I have every right. Mark snarled. I'm her father, and I'll be speaking to a lawyer. Don't think your little millionaire friend can buy me out. When Lena hung up, her hands trembled. For the first time in years, she felt truly afraid. That night, she told Nathaniel everything. He sat at her kitchen table, jaw, clenched hands folded tightly. He can't just waltz back into her life after abandoning her. Nathaniel said he can. Lena whispered, legally, he's still her father. And if he convinces a judge he's changed, that he's stable, they might give him custody rights. I don't have the money for a lawyer. Nathaniel, I can't fight him. Nathaniel's voice dropped steady as steel. Then I'll fight him. I'll pay for the best attorney in the city. I won't let him take Emma from you. Lena's eyes filled with tears. Why would you do this? Why would you risk so much for us? He hesitated. His voice cracked when he finally answered. Because Emma already feels like my daughter, and because his eyes met hers. I can't lose her. Not after everything I've already lost. The following week, the legal battle began. In the stark white corridors of the family court, Nathaniel and Lena faced Mark, who arrived smug, clean-shaven, and dressed like a man trying too hard to look respectable. His lawyer laid out his case. A steady job, a new apartment, a promise to make things right. But when it was Lena's turn, their attorney painted a very different picture. For years, Mr. Carter abandoned his child. No financial support, no visits, no birthdays. He resurfaces only when he learns another man has stepped up to fill the role he neglected. The judge turned to Mark. Mr. Carter, what's Emma's favorite food? Pizza, I guess, like most kids. What grade is she in? Mark fumbled. Second, maybe third, and her best friend's name. He froze. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably. The judge then looked at Nathaniel. And you, Mr. Hayes? You're not her biological father, but you've been present. Tell me, what do you know? Nathaniel leaned forward, his voice calm, but unwavering. Emma's favorite food is the macaroni and cheese her mom makes when she's had a bad day. She's in 3rd grade. Her best friend is Lily, who lives 2 doors down. Her favorite subject is math, and she wants to be a doctor like her mom. And when she has nightmares, she crawls into my lap and asks me to tell her stories about my work until she falls asleep. The courtroom went silent. Even Lena's lawyer blinked back tears. But the moment wasn't over. The judge looked toward the small figure, sitting quietly in the corner. Emma, would you come here, please? Emma walked slowly to stand. Her tiny hands twisted the hem of her dress. "Do you understand why we're here?" the judge asked kindly. "Yes, sir," Emma said softly. "Because that man says he's my dad." "And what do you think?" Emma's eyes darted toward Nathaniel. Then, with a sudden burst of courage, she lifted her chin. "My real dad is the one who dances with me when I'm sad, the one who helps me with my homework, the one who pushes me on the swings. That's Mr. Nathaniel. He's my dad, not the other man." Gasps rippled through the room. Mark's face turned crimson, his composure cracking. Nathaniel's throat tightened as he fought back tears. The judge tapped his gavel. "We'll recess for 1 hour. When we return, I'll deliver my decision." As Nathaniel and Lena walked Emma out of the courtroom, she slipped her hand into his. "You won't let him take me away, will you?" she whispered. Nathaniel bent down, his voice trembling. "Not now. Not ever." The courtroom was heavy with silence when the judge returned to the bench. Nathaniel could hear Lena's shallow breathing beside him, and Emma's small fingers clung to his hand like a lifeline. Across the aisle, Mark sat stiffly, his jaw set, trying to project confidence, though sweat glistened on his brow. The judge cleared his throat, his eyes scanning the room before landing on Emma. "After considering all testimonies and evidence, I have made my decision. The custody of Emma Carter will remain with her mother, Lena Carter." Lena gasped, tears spilling freely. She pulled Emma into her arms as relief washed over her face. But the judge wasn't finished. "Mr. Mark Carter will be permitted supervised visits contingent upon Emma's willingness. However, I strongly advise that instead of fighting for custody, he fight to earn his daughter's trust. Parenthood is not a title. It is a responsibility proven through consistent love and presence." Mark opened his mouth to protest, but the judge's gavel came down final and firm. "This court is adjourned." Emma immediately ran to Nathaniel, flinging her arms around his neck. "I told you you're my real dad," she whispered, her voice shaky, but filled with certainty. Nathaniel held her tightly, his throat closing with emotion. For the first time in years, he felt whole. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. News outlets had picked up the story of a millionaire fighting for a little girl who wasn't even his biological child. Reporters shouted questions, but Nathaniel shielded Emma from the chaos, lifting her into his arms as Lena walked at his side. In that moment, he didn't care about the press, the investors, or the business world. All that mattered was a little girl holding on to him as if her life depended on it. Weeks passed. Life settled into a new rhythm. Nathaniel was no longer just a wealthy stranger who appeared at a school dance. He was woven into Emma and Lena's daily life. On Tuesdays, he still came by for homework. On Saturdays, the park was their kingdom. Sundays often turned into pancake breakfast at Lena's kitchen table, laughter filling the small home in ways Nathaniel never thought possible. One evening after Emma had gone to bed, Nathaniel lingered at the doorway. "Lena," he said softly, "I know this isn't how you imagine things, but being with you and Emma, it's given me back something I thought I lost forever. If you'd let me, I'd like to build a life with you both." Lena's eyes softened, though she looked down hesitant. "You've already given us so much, Nathaniel. I don't know if I can ask you for more." "You don't have to ask," he replied. "I'm choosing this. I want to choose you, both of you." Tears shimmered in her eyes, and she nodded. That night, something shifted between them, not with fireworks, but with the quiet certainty of two souls realizing they were no longer alone. Months later, the family gathered at a community event. Nathaniel, now smiling more often than frowning, stood at the podium of a fundraiser he had launched in Olivia's memory, an initiative supporting single parents and children in need. His voice trembled as he spoke. "A year ago, I was a man drowning in grief, believing my life had no meaning. Then on an ordinary night, I met an extraordinary little girl who reminded me that family isn't always about blood. It's about love, sacrifice, and showing up when it matters most. That little girl is here tonight with her mother, the bravest woman I've ever known. Together, they gave me a second chance at life." He stepped down from the stage, walked to their table, and knelt in front of Lena. From his pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box. "Lena Carter," he said, voice thick with emotion, "will you marry me?" Will you let me be not just a man in your lives, but part of your family forever?" The crowd erupted into tears, and Emma squealed, clapping her hands. "Say yes, Mom. Say yes." Lena's tears flowed freely as she whispered, "Yes, Nathaniel. 1,000 times yes." Nathaniel slid the ring onto her finger, and Emma jumped into their arms, declaring loud enough for everyone to hear, "We're a real family now." From that night forward, everything changed. They moved into a cozy home with a yard where Emma could run barefoot, where Nathaniel planted flowers in Olivia's memory, and where Lena filled the kitchen with warmth and the smell of fresh bread. Emma thrived at school, no longer the girl who cried on the steps of a dance, but the girl who knew she was loved and cherished. 2 years later, Nathaniel sat in the front row of the school auditorium, Lena's hand in his, and their baby boy sleeping in her arms. Emma stood proudly on stage about to perform a dance recital. She spotted them in the crowd and waved. Nathaniel felt tears prick his eyes as he waved back. This was what happiness looked like. Messy, loud, imperfect, but real. When the music began, Emma twirled across the stage. Her face lit up with joy. And Nathaniel realized something profound he had once believed. His story ended with tragedy, but fate had handed him a new chapter, one written not with wealth or power, but with love. That night, as they walked home on the stars, Emma slipped her SMA, LL hand into his dad. She whispered, "Yes, sweetheart. Thank you for not walking away that night. Thank you for choosing me." Nathaniel stopped in his tracks, overcome. He lifted her into his arms and kissed her forehead. "No, Emma. Thank you for choosing me." The world around him faded, but in that moment, Nathaniel knew this was where he was meant to be. With Lena, with Emma, with a family he had never expected, but always needed. And it had all started with one dance. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. Do you believe true family can be chosen, not just born? Do you think Nathaniel and Emma's story proves that love is stronger than blood ties? If this story touched your heart, type 100 in the comments. Tell us what country you're watching from. And don't forget to share this video so more people can feel the power of love and